SCCA's National Championship Runoffs has long been a launching pad to professional careers for some, an annual pilgrimage for many, and a bucket list event just to compete in for all. This weekend, it is also a test extraordinaire, as for the contenders, Sonoma Raceway awaits. Whenever you're racing at Sonoma Raceway, it is a good day, especially when it's an absolutely beautiful late morning. But when you add in the fact you're going for a national championship in the 55th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs, well, as Jackie Stewart once said, it's a great day for motor racing. Great to have you with us, everybody. I'm Greg Creamer. I'd like to welcome Andy Hollis to our broadcast team here for the Runoffs here in our presentation made possible by the folks at Mazda. Hayward Wagner will be covering all the action down in pit lane. And one of the big things that we're going to be talking a lot about is the Formula V class is getting ready to go out to determine a national championship, is the challenges of this track.
That's right. What a great facility this is. It's my first time here, and I cannot tell you, I've seen plenty of races here on TV. When you stand at the bottom of the hill at turn one and look up the 106 odd feet that it is to the top, is just amazing. It's not what you see on TV. It's just a crazy place. And we got to do some laps around it. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but got to do some laps around it in a rental car, and boy, it is such a challenge.
Well, Andy's a 13-time solo national champ and recently a 2-time pro road racing championship engineer. That's why the hair gets a little gray. You look at the challenges of a track like this. But there's also amazing stories as well, and one of them sits on the inside of the front row. Let's get down to Hayward Wagner with more with our Tire Rack Pole interview.
Guys, we're going to talk to our Tire Rack pole sitter's wife in just a moment, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the class. Michael Verisons has really been the standard bearer for the last couple of years, and I want to show you a couple of the reasons why. If you look right here on the car, you have the plexiglass that's controlling the air as it comes over the nose of the car. There's also solid metal back here on the back of the control arms. All these little things that Verisons has done year after year to separate himself from the rest of the field. But this year he's qualified second, and this is our pole sitter car, Skip Streets. And to talk a little bit about Skip in this car, we've got his wife, Tracy, here. Tracy, there was a little misinformation earlier in the week. Tell the folks at home how Skip came to be in this car.
So we were all at Indy last year, and I really felt like we needed more time in the cars. It was only, the quick half hour every day. And so I said, why don't you race a V? Because Skip's been racing a V for 36 years with Ronnie Chuck. And this is his home track. We thought that, this would be the perfect opportunity to do two cars. We're from California. It's easy to get the cars here compared to, coming across the nation. And Skip was a champion in Formula V in 91. And so it just totally was the right thing to do. For him, the car happened to come up on Facebook from a friend of ours, and I immediately called my father-in-law to see if I should buy it. Then I called Ronnie and see if I should buy it. Nobody got back to me, and so I just said, let's just buy it. And then surprised Skip on Christmas Eve with the car on the lawn.
So you're going to watch this race. You're going to be nervous, or is this fun for you?
Oh, it's totally fun. It's great to see him in his element. I mean, this is the best thing for Skip. He comes out here and just is completely happy, grounded, and relaxed, and to be on the pole is just, we're both totally stoked.
We talk a lot about racing. There's not a lot of racing wives that are buying their husbands' cars for Christmas. So thank you and congratulations. And folks, if you're interested in this class, here's your magic words right here. This car is for sale on Monday.
How about that? And you saw Skip himself applauding his wife, and I think that is absolutely wonderful. That it's definitely a team spirit thing. We saw him looking at the car there, and you could see that little bit of an intro that Hayward gave us. These cars are in it's many ways kind of a spec class, but in many ways it's absolutely not, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
That's right, Greg. This is one of the earliest classes that SCCA has ever run. First run back in 1963, and while it's evolved quite a bit in the details as to what's legal due to parts availability, it's still the same basic single-seat formula car built from Volkswagen Beetle suspension, brakes, drivetrain with that original 1200cc motor. But the engineers can massage those motors on the internal parts, and while the stock power was only 40 horsepower, reworking it takes it up a whole 50% more to a whopping 60 horsepower. But they stripped down the body. The weight of these cars is just over 1,000 pounds with drivers, so the power to weight isn't too bad. I like to think of it as a stripped down, hopped out version of Herbie the Love Bug.
I like that. I like that. That's the key. Is there's so many stock VW components on the car. It makes it a relatively affordable class where it's all about the drivers, and that's what you love, especially when you come to Sonoma Raceway. That run to the national championship for Formula V is coming up next. Well, hi, everybody who are joining us here on our global web stream, the live coverage from the 55th running of the National Championship Runoffs. Great to have you with us. This is one of the shows that might end up on CBS. As a matter of fact, I think this one is for sure CBS Sports Network show. So as we go through this show, there may be times when we lay out during breaks to have conversations with producers, etc. We'll certainly keep the video up so you can enjoy the coverage. We just may not be chatting quite as much throughout the coverage, but we'll be with you as often as we can. And above all, just kick back and enjoy. This one should be special.
Uh-oh.
Onto the course for their pace lap. We do have the chance for a drive, actually two drivers in Formula V are still eligible for the SCCA Road Racing Super Sweep Award. In order to win that award, you must win your championship. You must win your SCCA Super Sport standing, and of course, you must win the National Championship Runoff. And we have the following drivers that are still up for that award.
A near 30-car strong Formula V field out on the pace lap as we are about ready to take off on our quest for a national champion in 2018 for Formula V, being led around by the 1,000 horsepower Trans Am 455 Super Duty. Absolutely spectacular machine. That is the official pace car of the SCCA Runoffs. And I'll tell you what, it's been a joy watching that thing go out and do some demo laps as the event has unfolded. And right behind him, you see our Tire Rack Pole Award winner. That is Skip Streets out of San Clemente, California, and the Hoosier Ron Chuck Pops and Tracy Mysterian. And it's an interesting opportunity here, Andy. If he wins it, he might set the record for the longest gap between national championships. He won one in '91 in Formula V. In 2018, he has an opportunity to make it a record setter.
That's right, and he's definitely one of the examples of one of the stories we've been seeing all week, which is the local knowledge versus the strong folks from around the country. But yeah, the last time he won here was in 1991. He's been competing in Formula F quite a bit, but with, as we saw earlier, wife buying him this car for Christmas, making a huge difference there.
And the Mysterian chassis that he's driving, I know that Hayward pointed out the for sale on it. That's a car that's consistently always been a front runner. And, you know, there are some nuances, you know, some differences. But, again, this class very much about the driver. And the driver to his left is somebody that is pretty special indeed. 6-time gold medalist, 10-time podium finisher, the 65 there of Mike Veresons. And it's going to be interesting to see how this race plays out. 20 laps of competition to determine the gold medalist and national champion in Formula V, and it is about to set sail. And again, these opening few laps on these skinny tires, and this is such a momentum class. It is a huge training ground, and it's also a fabulous challenge. And they go with an early green to try and let them get settled, and a beautiful launch by Skip Streets, but behind him 3, 4, 5 cars wide. Way wide, as a matter of fact, as they set up for turn 1. Everybody here has to settle in. And one of the things about this class, there's an awful lot of experience behind the wheel generally.
There sure is. And if you notice there, Greg, there's little puffs of smoke at the top of the hill. These cars, the motors are built super loose to reduce friction so they can get every last horsepower out of them. But that oil does tend to drip out of the cars over time. And while the track is super clean right now, later on in the race, that may start to play a factor, particularly slightly offline.
And you can see, we've been talking about how narrow and skinny those tires are. That's by design. This class was originally designed, 1, to be inexpensive, and 2, to be a true test for the driver. It's momentum and car control. And car control doesn't necessarily mean you hear it and you think about big lurid slides. That'll just kill absolute momentum. That's friction that'll just slow these cars down. Little drifts, yes, but you have to have the control there. And number 12, Andrew Whitson, lost his 3rd starting spot, but hounded the number 2 of Andrew Thomas Abbott to get into turn 7 just a little bit hot. And you can see that was just costly enough, but Abbott actually got a pretty decent run out of 7, and that's one of the interesting things about turn 7 over there. You can overrun it, but you square it up, and then you get on the throttle so soon coming out of it into these S's, you can get a great run again.
That's right. Oftentimes we'll see the over-under played out there in a very classic fashion. One of the other things about these cars is they only have drum brakes. And so it's really, really a challenge to get them tuned up exactly right and adjusted right so that they work well at both the beginning of the race and at the end of the race, because as heat gets into those drums, the clearances change. And so he may have had his a little too tight there, and that caused the lockup, or it just may have just been a driving thing.
And you can see Veresons absolutely on the pipe. As a side-by-side battle now between that number 12 of Andrew Whitson, who qualified 3rd, and his row mate, the number 2 of Andrew Abbott. And they continue. And that little bit of side-by-side battling, when they had come by start-finish, they had a nice little margin back to the 5th place car of Shields. It's gone. You start running side-by-side here, the guys that are chasing you will be all over you in a heartbeat.
That's right, because drafting with these cars, because they don't make a lot of power, it's all about momentum. And all those little aero improvements that Hayward pointed out earlier, that's for drag reduction. They're not getting downforce as we get some hand waving. Get out of my way. But yeah, if you get out of line, you can lose touch with folks in front, much in the way that you might see in a NASCAR race at a super speedway.
And it's interesting, sometimes in this class, you'll see that hand waving, and it's actually an attempt to communicate to, let's draft, let me just tuck in right behind you, because these guys up front are getting away. And that's the experience that we've talked about so many times here. And the number 77 of Rick Shields putting on a good charge in the early going here out of Bridgeville, Pennsylvania. And he runs the VSR Auto Works Hoosier VDF machine. Again, lots of great names for the chassis in these categories, because a lot of them are actually home built.
That's right. Over the years, names like Auto Dynamics, Form Car, Beach, Zinc, Lynx, Agitator, I like that one, Vista, Bushwhacker, Citation, as we talked about the Mysterian Protoform, Vortec. Everybody who builds a car, they like to give it a kind of a clever little name. And no two of these really look alike. Even if you buy one where the bodywork was provided by the same manufacturer, everybody tweaks them up to their own little designs.
A nice move there by the green number 19 of Scaler as he ducked underneath the 61 of Whiteside. That was for the 6th spot, but as you can see in these cars, you can over-under it so easily, and Scaler able to get the run out of that turn. But in that exchange, the 91, the black V of Sweeney, comes up and joins the mix. This is what makes this class so much fun to watch, is you just get into these, one, drafting battles, and two, sometimes when you're in a drafting battle, you've got to let the guy go, because then he's going to tow you around as well, and that's how you close up just a little bit. But that involves an awful lot of trust that the guy's going to let you through when it's your turn. And you worry about that sometimes.
You do indeed. That's where if you're racing with people that you've run with all year, that can be super beneficial. But if you're the outlier who comes in here from across the country, you can't necessarily trust that that guy's going to let you go through when the time comes. But if you try to get out there on your own, you're going to get dropped like a rock.
Absolutely, and we've seen this battle, 3rd, 4th, and 5th here between Whitson, Abbott, and Shields. They've raced each other a little bit, looked inside, looked outside. Look what the guys in front are doing. Skip Streets and Michael Verisons. Verisons, when he got a run, he didn't pull out and try and do anything. He just stayed behind him and said, let's go. Let's try and break this into a mano-a-mano battle. And that is the plan at the very front right now. It is Streets leading over Verisons, and just a bit back, and a great battle for the final podium spot is Andrew Whitson in the number 12. All right, we're in a bit of a break here on the web, and in the back of the shot, folks, we just saw the 77 of Rick Shields coming through that diabolical turn 10, had it get away from him. He spun to the inside. He didn't get to the outside, but so now Rick Shields is going to just drop down the order, and he's got his work to do here. I assume the way he did that, he didn't get into anything, so he ought to be able to come back. Meanwhile, here comes the number 2 of Abbott, as he now attacks on Whitson. He didn't have to worry about Shields behind him after Shields had spun, and so he just dropped the hammer and came up the inside and made that pass on Whitson for 3rd. You can see no Shields in that shot now after that spin. So next up is the green number 19 of Scaler, who now moves up and into that 5th place.
Yeah, Streets and Verisons just walking away now. Verisons content to sit behind and wait for his moment near the end of the race. At that time as well, if he's running behind, he doesn't have to push the tires quite as much as he's drafting like that. And so his tires ought to be in a lot better condition as they get towards the end of the race.
And again, that's what I'm talking about. Look at those two. They are absolutely line astern, just not punching a hole in the air. And you can see Verisons had a little bit better speed there, but instead of trying to make the pass, he actually let it float outside so that he didn't slow them both down a little bit. But I wonder how long that patience is going to last for Verisons, because I think right now, just watching it, he really feels he's got a quicker car.
Well, that's for sure. But, you know, tires are like a bank account. You can only withdraw so much from them. And if you take it all out too soon or at too high a rate, and we've got a spin there.
That's the number 80 of Stephen Davis.
If you take the life too soon out of the tire and or overheat them, they're not going to be there when you really, really want them. And Verisons is there's a reason why he's won 6 of the last 9 runoffs in this class. He knows the drill. He's patient. He knows that that's going to pay off in the end.
The battle at the front, it's not much of a battle right now. These two are working together at this stage in their quest for a Formula V National Championship. This is one of those scenarios where they might well stay like this for 15, 16 laps. The gloves will come off at the end when the battle, it is time for the battle. But what they're hoping, obviously, at that point, Andy, is that they built a big enough margin that when they start racing each other, they're not going to get run down by the folks that are chasing. And while we were in break, folks, the 5th place car, the number 77 of Shields, who had been having a very solid run in that battle for the top 5, spun in turn 10. No contact, but he has lost an awful lot of ground.
Yeah, that's right. So Streets and Verisons checking out on the field at this point by working together. And Veresons knows if he sits behind there, he doesn't have to use as much of his tire in order to stay in contact. I mean, I like to look at tires like a bank account. You've only got so much in there, and if you withdraw it all too soon, you don't have the money there towards the end of the thing. In fact, we saw him sort of take a look there, but back off.
Well, he's done that before. He shows him like, look, I'm here, but then he just lets it float, doesn't try and get down the inside and slow him down. The number 19 of Scaler locked up big time heading into turn 7. I think Scaler right now, he's not interested in working with somebody. He thinks he's got a fast hot rod. He wants to get to the front. He is attacking right now in the number 2 of Abbott.
Yeah, he sure is. And this is a challenging part of the track down there through the S's. 2B doing that kind of attack. There's not a great passing zone in there. Let's see if he can get it done here as they come down into the turn 11.
Oh.
He takes that super tight line.
Well, he got Abbott to get in a little hot, and Abbott got all kinds of crossed up.
And let's see, without the draft here, whether he can maintain it. No, he cannot. And even though the...
This is great stuff, side by side. And when you go side by side up one, somebody eventually says, yeah, this isn't going to work. And smart move there by Abbott to just tuck back in and not get caught. If you're side by side in the approach to 2, you're going to be extremely slow out of it. And we've seen, obviously, that Whitson is not exactly running slowly right now either, and he would have something to say about it. But as we watch this, look at all of these turns that you're apexing over a brow. It's a blind approach. The car gets super light. There's elevation changes here everywhere you look. Even here, you think, okay, I'm dropping down to the gear. Nope, I'm going up over this little rise before it drops. These cars are constantly putting huge amounts of pressure and stress on those suspensions with all these elevation changes.
Absolutely, and that's why, I mean, you can see them sliding around a little bit. The surface, I went down and checked that out earlier in the week, and the surface at this racetrack, all of the surface is very polished. It's very, very flat. Each of the stones inside the asphalt, very flat, and that's why these tires can't get any sort of mechanical grabbing onto them. So you're always sliding just a little bit, and you really want to stay under that slide if you can. Otherwise, you generate too much heat, and your tires are going to lose grip by adding, as we see exactly what I'm talking about right there. Like you said, you go over the crest, and the car lets go.
And now we come up to turn 10, which is truly one of the great corners. And these cars get, a little wiggle there by Scaler, and he had to hang on to it to save it. And that now has given a nice run to Abbott. Abbott tucks in, wasn't quite close enough. There's that lockup. You know, we see these little bits of smoke from these cars, but that's lockup coming from Scaler, and he's got a flat spot now. Then again, the number 2 of Abbott got sideways mid-corner, and here comes Whitson in that red and white machine, third in your shot right now. That's third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah, great racing back here in the third, fourth, fifth spot as, again, Streets and Veresons just checking out on the field. And as you say, they're probably going to be going after it later.
And Scaler, with that little bit of a moment here for the number 2 again, Scaler has been able to open that margin up just a little bit as those two started to battle just a smidge. And Scaler now, boy, it didn't take long either. And that green V, he's opened up a margin. There's the 2 leaders, Streets and Veresons, and that's the margin back now to Scaler in third.
And I'm watching these lap times now, and they're definitely starting to fall off. In qualifying, these guys were running in the 52s, and now we're into the 54s, 53s as well for Veresons, high 53s, low 54s.
And that's got to be a little bit of a matter of just tire management, isn't it?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. That was a huge, wide run through turn 7 by the number 2 of Abbott. And he's got a car right now that is not really happy mid-corner. In the tight stuff. It has a nice flow once he gets into the S's and the longer duration corners, but the tight stuff, that car seems to be extremely free. And as we watch now the leaders against Streets and Veresons, and they just continue to ease away a little bit from that pursuing pack, and you see Veresons can stay close. They like a couple different lines through this corner, through turn 11.
Yeah, indeed. You see Veresons setting up wide for that. And I think, you know, one of the things he's doing here by probing in various places is trying to establish his plan of attack as to where am I a little better than this guy? Where am I going to get him later on? when the race gets towards the closing laps.
Well, and that's part of the game is you tend to try and figure out where eventually I'm going to need to start attacking this guy instead of just running with him. Where does he look to be a little weak? Where do I have a strength that I can perhaps capitalize on?
And remember, Verisons does not have a lot of time here where Streets does. And that's why Verisons needs to try those kinds of things in order to understand in a race situation, a 40-minute race situation, when and where am I going to be able to make these attacks.
Absolutely. Out of Burlington, Wisconsin, this is not a trip he makes often, but he can learn tracks in a hurry. Qualified outside of the front row. He's got 8 poles in his Runoffs career, and he showed he's a master of learning a track in a hurry, and he's chasing the master of the track here at Sonoma Raceway in the battle for Formula V. And back with you here on our live web stream while we're in a break for the CBS show. Again, you just saw Verisons. He's willing to run out. He just does not want to get down underneath too abruptly on Streets because he knows that'll slow them both up. So when he gets those runs, he just lets it float to the outside. You did see him just go for the tear off there because he's getting those little spurts of smoke that are oil filled from.
The other thing I noticed is
just
just coming up the crest of the hill there is it looks like Verison's car is sticking a little bit better than Streets' car. So he knows he has more car at this point. He's just biding his time, and there it is again. You mentioned taking that outside line into turn 11, and this may be one of the places where he thinks he's going to be better than Streets towards those closing laps.
Well, Streets clearly protecting a little bit, heading down into that turn, isn't he? And you could see him hunting in his mirrors. And we have one of our competitors, a little tough to see the number here, might be the number 3 of Blake Tatum out of Stockton, California, has pulled off and is out of the car. And you can see, got the helmet off, a little bit of frustration here. Not what you want to do when you come to the runoffs. You want to at least say you finished.
That's right.
Such a prestigious event.
Well, unfortunately, he appears to have poured off into a place where he's not going to get a full course yellow or anything like that. And that's smart driving there. If you know your day is done, you don't want everybody else's day to be done. And certainly in a situation like this, where you've got 2 drivers pulling a gap on the rest of the field, if we were to go full course yellow, then that would bunch the whole thing up and everything would change. And you don't want to be the guy that makes that happen.
Well, and that's part of the camaraderie in SCCA is that these are all people that at the end of the day you're probably having dinner with, and so you don't want to do anything that will mess them up just a little bit. And if you can let them keep a good race going, they will. Now, Verison's first time he's seriously looked to the inside, and I think he said, "Look, I'm quicker. Let me lead. You follow, and let's see if we can draw away even more."
That's interesting because we got I got a note here from Hayward Wagner, who had asked Skip Streets prior to the actual race starting, where do you want to be on the last lap? And he does not want to be in second. He wants to be leading.
We have a new leader in Formula V in the run for the national championship at Sonoma Raceway, brought to you by Mazda, as Michael Verisons, the 6-time gold medalist in Formula V at the Runoffs, has found his way around pole sitter Skip Streets and into the lead. And it was an interesting maneuver. And one of the things that we're thinking about it is that Verisons had been able to run up on Streets comfortably a few times, and they'd open that gap up. But I think the crew may have said, "Scalar's coming. You guys got to go." And Verisons decided to take his shot up front. There's a look at the pass.
There it is. And yeah, you watch the lap times here developing. And as you said, third place was starting to get a little bit closer, and at some point you just got to go to it. Even though it was pretty clear that Verison's plan all along had been to wait till the last couple of laps, at some point you just got to go.
And he's, again, Streets certainly capable of staying right with him. And that was just a classic move because we'd seen into 7 before. Verisons had that amount of speed, and he just let it float outside so he didn't disrupt them through the corner. And that time he said, "Look, we've got to go here." And he went down the inside. And the reason I think is because that green number 3 of, the number 19 of Scalar in third is what I was getting at here. He's making up some pretty serious ground.
He sure is. He sure is.
And you wonder, of course, at that point, just if he's pushing that hard. We've got a lot of laps, over half of this race yet to go. One of the things that you see fairly frequently is a guy will push hard, catch the field, and he catches them, and then when he can now go and do battle with them, he doesn't have tire left to do it. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Exactly. As we talked about before, you start pulling all the money out of that tire bank account, and you're just not going to have any left to cash the checks towards the end of the race.
And you said that in some conversations you had during the week that this is really not where Skip Streets wanted to be in this race, correct?
Now that's what pre-conversation was, that he wants to be leading on the last lap, where Veresins was certainly comfortable being in second. But situations are now that Veresin just wanted to go, and Streets is not where he wants to be. So we'll see how he reacts to that.
And it's interesting here, and this track you have is, again, now we see Streets getting a nice run through 10. Ooh, a little rotation there for Veresins. He may have floated up, and then look at that. Big slide by Streets, and that sort of nulled the run that he may have been able to get out of that turn, and he had to tuck right back in again.
Yeah, it looks
That's
like
fun driving.
Looks like it was protecting by taking that tighter line, and then got wide through the middle of the turn.
Up through this great run up into turn 2. Up and over the rise. I'm kind of impressed here that Scaler's been able to run these laps, because we were seeing that tire lock up quite a bit, and I would have suspected he had a flat spot there. And generally that means you've got to slow down just a little bit, and he's not doing it. He has been closing and coming after these guys. It looks like Veresins now has found just a little bit of pace and has opened up a little bit of a gap now back to Streets.
That's right, and it'll be interesting to see whether Streets, now that he's a little bit detached, doesn't keep dropping, because now he's lost that draft, which, as we talked about in the pre-show, how important it is to draft for these cars.
Well, especially here, you come all the way through the carousel, this run up into 7, this is, a lot of drivers have said here, I don't even have time to check my gauges, but in a V, you still need to get a little bit of a draft. Oh, Streets really locking up that right front. That's cost him dearly.
It has. He ran really wide on the exit there, and this is an important place to be back on the throttle early, and he was not. So Veresin's going to escape a little bit more here. Let's watch and see how the gap develops.
This is where that discipline comes in. You see the guy driving away a little bit, and your instinct is just pick this car up and carry it. But you do that, you're going to run the tires off it even worse. So you've got to settle. But I was going to ask you, we watched early in the race. You'd see Streets heading into this next turn, turn 11, angle into the apex, sort of protecting a little bit. Well, that tightens the radius up. That stresses the tires more. I wonder if he just used his tires up a little bit more than Veresin's in those laps, when Veresin's was just running wide through the corners and letting him pull him through.
Yep, quite possible. That's in addition to Veresin's perhaps probing, he was taking those nice easy lines, which is easier on the tires. And anytime you're following and you're in the draft like that, it's going to be a little bit easier on the tires for you.
Just taking a look at some times here, and best time of the lead 3 has been set by Alex Scaler at a 1:53.639. So that is a good lap. The others not outside of it by much, but still out of it by 2 to 3 tenths. And that's why Scaler's been able to run them down just a little bit. They're currently still well off the track record that one of our competitors here, Dennis Andrade, set in the past at a 1:52.5. And I did want to make mention here that in this race, we do have a couple of drivers that are what they call super sweep eligible, and that is one of the toughest awards in all of racing, let alone in SCCA alone, to win. Because to get it, you have to, one, win your Majors Conference Championship, then you've got to finish atop the Hoosier Super Tour point standings, and if you've managed to do all of that, then you just have to do a little thing called win the national championship at the runoffs. And both the number Charles Hearn and Mitchell Ferguson have an opportunity to do that. The problem for them is right now they are all well down the order. Mitchell Ferguson running in the 6th spot, and Hearn outside of the top 10. It's a tough thing to do, even when you've qualified well, and they didn't quite get that done. But I do want to mention the number 52 of Mitchell Ferguson. One of the things about the Sports Car Club of America is the club. It is a club. It's Streets. Let's see if he really tries something here. Well, he's throwing it down in there. Veresin saw it coming, opened the wheel up, and Streets is through into the lead. See if Veresins is going to be able to, I don't think he really worried about the counter punch, because he knows there's a lot of laps, and he said just get back in behind. And then as I say that, he says, no, maybe I want to get right back to the front again.
That's right. We're just past the halfway point in this race. Plenty. Oh, there you go.
There it is.
There it is. Amazing back and forth here.
Yeah, and that's the savvy of Veresins, is somebody else may have tried to do the repass right away coming out of the corner, tightened up the radius to cut it. He just let it flow, get his speed up, and then pop to the inside. That's a savvy race car driver right there. But getting back to the number 52 of Ferguson, and the club aspect of Sports Car Club. There's a camaraderie. A lot of these guys have been racing each other for a decade or more, and at the end of the day, they're having dinner together. They're other dear friends, and for Mitchell Ferguson, that really played out during qualifying.
It sure did, because nobody wants to win because of somebody else's misfortune, and unfortunately, he did stuff it over into a tire wall earlier this weekend during practice, and the car was just in bits, and a number of the competitors, including Stephen Davis, got together to help rebuild the car. We were over there a couple of days ago, and it was completely torn apart other than the chassis itself. And a day and a half later, it was completely back together again and qualified on the last day of qualifying, and he put it into the field, and here he is racing now.
Yeah, it's very, very special. And up front, you see these two guys racing this intense, hammer and tong. There's another beautiful move by Streets down into turn 7 to reclaim that lead. And these guys will race this hard, not just today. They'll do it all season. And yet they will hand you anything that you need. And I've seen it many times when a guy has handed a competitor a part that if that guy doesn't have that part, he can't run. And if he has the part, he could well beat you. Oh! Little too greedy for Streets.
Oh, man. I mean, that may just be an experience thing. He has done a lot of Formula V in the past, but he's been running Formula Ford a lot more lately, and just goes around right in the middle of turn 11. And Veresons just drives off at this point.
And I wonder, one of the things about these cars is these cars, because of the power, the momentum, and the like, as we take another look at it here, let's watch. I'm wondering if maybe he didn't go down a gear too low and it snapped. Nope. The wheels didn't lock. They just went around, didn't they?
Yeah, because they only use 2 gears in these cars. Either he just carried a little too much speed, but you also notice he went over the curbing there. It's relatively mild in turn 11, but it does have paint on it, and the paint has less grip than the asphalt itself, and so perhaps he just lost a little bit of rear grip and the car went around.
And if you're right on the limit and you get that curb, it'll unsettle it just enough to maybe have the car snap around. Nonetheless, whatever the cause was, it has been a bit of a gift for Veresons as he now finds himself with a sizable lead, and it is over somebody else. The green number 19 of Scaler with the 51 of Streets now slipping to third here in the run for the gold in Formula V. Well, an unfortunate moment by Skip Streets. Obviously, there was a lot on the line for Skip here in terms of coming back. And, how nice would it have been to complete the story of his wife buys him a V, surprises him with it on Christmas, and then to go out and win a national championship. He still has a shot at a medal in a national championship, which isn't too bad at all. But, I think he'll be ruining that mistake.
Yeah, no doubt. And unfortunately for us, we don't get to see that battle continue to unfold the way it was. I mean, that was some really killer racing right there. And one of the things we've talked about all week is the fact that while this track, it has a few passing zones that you would call traditional passing zones, but more importantly, what you typically do is follow the other guy around, pressure him into making a mistake. And that's where your passing zone is. Wherever he makes the mistake, runs wide, all these blind turns, runs wide on an exit, or perhaps in this case, carries a little too much speed onto an entrance. And that's your opportunity. And certainly it played out in that way for Veresons, who was running just like an experienced guy would, a guy who's won 6 of these before, and he's just being patient throughout.
Well, you're absolutely right, and this is a class, when you think about a lot of modern day racing here with paddle shift and ABS and traction control and no lift and all that, this is a class where you can still hound that person into a mistake. These cars have run virtually unchanged in terms of the mechanicals since you talked about it when they first appeared in 1963, and you can hound somebody into a little bit of an error.
No doubt. I mean, nobody ever runs a perfect lap in one of these cars. There's so many things you have to do right. So much is left up to the driver. And since, given that, if you can get 95% of the stuff right every single lap, then you're going to be leading the race.
You bring up a very good point as we see Streets there go for a tear-off. Again, these cars do tend to throw up a little bit of oil when you see those little plumes of smoke. But this is years ago at a Trans Am race at Road Atlanta, and Tommy Kendall, and it was in the era when you'd have 15 guys separated by a few tenths. I mean, it was just insane. Was on pole by like 7 tenths.
Right.
And I asked him afterwards, I said, Tommy, how did you do that with that kind of gap? And he looked at me, kind of shook his head and said, I guess I just made a few less mistakes than the other guys.
Exactly.
And so there he is saying that wasn't a perfect lap. Nobody drives a perfect lap.
That's right.
You know, it's just minimizing the errors, hitting your marks as best you can. And it's pretty impressive stuff here that we are seeing. And so Streets has to mount the charge. Verison's alone out front here in the run for the national championship in Formula V. Our coverage presented by Mazda. Big thanks to them. And Verison's now running in that lead spot, chased by the number 19, who has put on a great charge from 7 to 2nd. Alex Scaler out of Flemington, New Jersey, in the Advantage Motorsports machine right there, that green machine. And the pole sitter, Skip Streets, in the number 51, a somewhat distant third right now after a moment in turn 11. And Scaler has not given up, and I think he's seeing Verison's is starting to get into some traffic. And one little hiccup by Verison's lapping a car. He gets through nice and clean right there, but this can still change dramatically, and there's certainly time to go. There's still a quarter of this race yet to run.
That's right, and traffic can always play a part in these things. Not that any driver who's getting past wants to be in the way or be a deciding factor. They may be unaware of the incoming driver or just be hogging the line. Any of those kind of things can impact the leaders coming through.
And just keep everybody up to date. Last year's silver medalist, the number 12 of Andrew Whitson, currently runs in the 4th spot, and in the 5th spot is Andrew Thomas Abbott. He was 4th at the Runoffs last year at Indy in the AutoWorks Hoosier Caroliner Vector. Ferguson runs in 6th, Weisheit in the 7th spot. Shields has recovered and charged back up into 8th. That's a great comeback drive by Rick Shields after his spin. So the 72 is Siebenaller, and then the 26, who has moved up just a little bit as well, having a good run. That's Brandon Abbott out of Farmington Hills, Michigan. But here's the man that sat on the pole, and after his spin right there in that corner now, he's got his work cut out for him. He's got a comfortable margin back to Whitson, so he doesn't really have to worry about pressure from behind. It's just a matter of, can he make up 4 seconds here in these last few laps in a class where the margins are generally down to tenths.
Yeah, I know. 4 seconds in 4 laps. That's a lap. That's a second a lap, and that's going to be a real challenge. But if there's anything left in that tire, now is the time to do it.
Absolutely, it's time to push. But he has already pushed so hard. Oh, that was a moment there, and I don't think the 25 expected him to come up and try that move. He did. Now he points him by, and that just gives you an idea of how fierce it is. That's Charlie Turner out of Mission Viejo, California, the Noble Engines Vortec. And I think he just didn't expect him there, realized, oh, I've shut the door, and I think that's one of the guys that might be up front, and immediately let him through.
Well, and that was exactly what I was talking about a moment ago. It's just an awareness thing, and if you've been running a little further back in the field the whole time, you're in the zone yourself, and you're just not expecting somebody to come through, and oftentimes not everybody here has a spotter who's telling them what's going on, and so you have to be watching those mirrors. If you're not used to watching the mirror, those guys will surprise you every time.
And that's where the mirror and also those flaggers can be such a great help. Not just in warning you if somebody's spun behind one of those blind brows, but also if somebody's coming up behind you and who's running significantly quicker. That's all part and parcel of the program. I just want to real quickly say this is the first race in the Runoffs in Formula V in a very long time that Lisa Noble has not been competing. She's here. Talked to her the other day, and she said, no, I just decided I was going to step out of the car this year and just take things in from a little bit different perspective. But obviously, she and her husband Bill, who won so many championships and built so many championship-winning engines, so connected to this class. And I'm glad she's here. I wish she was in the race because we love calling her when she was behind the wheel.
That's right. The Noble family, always a fixture in this class, and as well in the club itself. Lisa leading the way in a leadership position with SCCA for a number of years as well. So yeah, hopefully she'll get back in the car for next year.
Absolutely, and this is getting a little interesting because Streets has made up some ground. I mean, there they are. That's the margin, 2nd to 3rd right now. It's down to about 6-7 car lengths at this point. So the number 51 of Streets has mounted a charge and might be coming back for a run at maybe more than a bronze medal here at Sonoma. There's your leader, Michael Verisons, continuing to just manage the race beautifully here from his 2nd qualifying spot in his Speed Sport Engineering Light Flight Speed Sport AM5. But What's getting curious is the battle behind him right now. Andy Scaler in the green number 19 was pretty impressive and very quick early, but Streets, after his spin in the 51 red and black machine, is starting to close him down, and we wonder if Scaler maybe just didn't use up too much tire early in this race.
That's right. Streets, I mean, we know he's quick. He qualified at the pole. We know there's a lot more performance in the car. He's got something to prove. I mean, even if he's not going to get that gold medal, he wants to get up there, at least get the silver medal. For sure, it looks like he's going to be on the podium, but you got nothing to lose at this point. So he is going to hammer hard onto Scaler, and hopefully the same thing happens to Scaler, which is that he gets pressured into making a mistake.
And let's watch. There's Veresons just out of frame. Here we go. Well, I'll tell you, Scaler gets through turn 10 exceptionally well. You saw going into turn 9, Skip was all over the back of the green number 19. Exit at 10, 3-4 car lengths. So Scaler is carrying some serious speed through one of the most treacherous corners, probably the most treacherous corner on this track.
Sure, and it was interesting to watch that they both had very different lines through there. You saw Scaler taking that wider line, but Streets, even though it may have contributed to his spin earlier, right up there on that curbing, you run a shorter path. Shorter path is usually quicker if you can make the car stick through it.
And this is one of the reasons that Streets was not about to give up and was going to come after Scaler, because he knows, he's seen it, he's raced long enough. Veresons, one misstep by a car in traffic and things could change dramatically. Veresons right now is weeding his way through and has done a brilliant job getting through those two cars. And now it's up to Scaler to do it and Streets to execute as well. This is going to be fascinating as we're at 2 to go. Scaler through on 1. Looks like they both have been really aware of where the traffic is, and they're both going to come on through. Street's going to try and get a little toe off of the yellow V.
Yep.
Now he'll pop to the inside and see if he can't get a run going.
Yeah, that looks great. They're using that draft off the other car. That's another skill that you get over
Here he
years of it.
goes.
Oh, yes. Down to the inside, and he's got it very cleanly.
A wiggle, though. Saw that little wiggle right at the A. I thought Scaler might try and throw it down the inside, Andy. He thought wiser.
Yeah, no doubt. Still a little bit of time to go. No point in putting your own race at jeopardy. This is great stuff now.
Now let's watch here, because Street's leading now through 9. There's Scaler, and this is where Scaler would make up so much speed when he was in front of Streets. Now he's got to run Street speed through there. Did he gap him to try and get a run at the exit? There's Veresons, and these guys are closing on Veresons a little bit, it looks like.
No doubt. Of course, Veresons is probably managing his pace a little bit, and as we talked about, these little 4-inch wide wheels, the tires aren't much bigger than a motorcycle tire. He wants to make sure that no issues happen. And remember, a lot of this componentry is based on old technology. You don't want to stress it too hard if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's a very good point. All right, here we go. Last lap, 1 to go. And there's your top 3. That's the battle for the medals here. I'm not sure this is quite as comfortable as Veresons wanted it. That margin's now down to just a tick over a second only.
It sure is. 1.2 seconds there and less than half a second back to Scaler.
There they come. Streets, Scaler closing. This is fascinating stuff. Veresons, he knows where they are. And I think it's still entirely possible that Veresons is so savvy that he may be sensing tires are going off a little bit. I'm willing to give something back here to try and keep them underneath me for those last few corners, especially the run through the S's. And 10 coming up on lap traffic. Look at that, taking just a little toe off of that guy. You take anything you can get in these cars, don't you?
That's exactly right, especially down through the through those sections there, through the S's.
Here we go. Last time through turn 7. The run through the iconic S's here at Sonoma Raceway. Boy, and Streets is closing on Veresons.
Yeah, he sure is.
And Streets followed Scaler through 10 a couple of times and found where he was losing speed. Sometimes you learn from that. Oh boy, this is interesting. Here we go into turn 10.
Look at that.
Streets carrying some serious speed, Andy.
That's amazing as he's catching up, and now he's caught the draft.
Veresons has to protect, doesn't he?
He does. He's going to duck it inside here, not leave an opening.
And Streets, oh, you can see hands on the wheel, flailing, trying to cut underneath. It's a drag race to the line. He's got nowhere to go. Veresons on the outside. He tucks back in. Now he dives to the inside. An absolute drag race. And Veresons, the fist came out of the car optimistically. right as Streets came up the inside. Who would have thought 5 laps ago that we would have had a margin of victory of 99 one-thousandths of a second, Andy?
That is amazing. Oh my gosh, what a finish. As you said, perhaps we're thinking he's being all smart and coy and all like that, and perhaps the tires were just gone off. And again, he maybe pulled a little too much off of him earlier on when he made that pass in order to get in front of Streets early.
But I cannot wait to hear when Hayward talks to him about what happened there in those last few laps. And conversely, the same for Streets. You know, when he was third not long ago behind Scaler, it looked like he was going away, and he ran after the spin. He ran him down, got in front of him, and was able to come down and darn near take that second national championship in Formula V. But the guy up front just got his 7th.
He did. What an impression!
Wow.
We knew this was going to be David versus, the local David versus Goliath, the national Goliath, and we got that battle. It was really great. I mean, I am super impressed with the drive from Streets, though, to come from making a big spin in order to get all the way back up to within half a car width of the win.
Formula V always produces amazing moments and phenomenal drives by some awfully savvy drivers, and that's exactly what we've seen. And when we come back here to Sonoma Raceway, we're going to hear from them.
That was cool.
For the 7th time in Formula V, Michael Verisons works his way down pit lane, going by all of the pit stalls because he is headed to a very special place. It is the interview station where medals are draped around your neck. And you just saw that pit marshal right there said, "You get spot number 1." And Verisons is going to pull in here. What a story, what a race, qualifying in the 2nd spot, following, just letting him build that margin. And then finally breaking away after getting a little mistake out of Streets, gets out, builds a big margin, and then has it go away at the end. At the end, the margin of victory, 99 one-thousandths of a second, Andy. I mean, what a race.
It was a killer race. I mean, Streets, after that one mistake, really had the bit between his teeth, worked his way back, and then set up that. I mean, who would have thought you're going to make an inside pass there right at the kink there leading onto the front stretch, and he almost made it work. I mean, that was just super impressive driving.
Yeah, and you can see there's a little bit of stress there in Verisons, the way he's reacting there. I think that ended up at the end. There comes Streets. What a nice gesture by Skip Streets to pop over there. And the hat going on, and Hayward Wagner is standing by.
Michael Verisons, we're starting to have an annual conversation, you and I, here in Victory Lane. This one was a little nervous for you. Talk about the last couple of laps. What was happening in your car?
Yeah, Skip was fast all week. And he was quick from the get-go. So we were kind of playing catch-up most of the week here, I think. So, I kind of thought it was going to kind of come down to him and I in the race, and it did. And first few laps, I could tell I was having a hard time getting by him, and we were kind of feeling each other out a little bit. And it looked like his car was pretty loose. I thought if I just kind of kept pushing him a little bit and the tires would go off a little bit and maybe eventually it'd screw up. And unfortunately he did. I think he got over the rumbles in 11 a little bit and the car just kind of looped around. And then, then it was just kind of a matter. I saw Scaler back there, and it was sort of a tire management game at that point, just trying to stay fast enough to kind of stay ahead in case I got some traffic, and caught a few bad breaks in traffic that kind of closed the gap up a little bit there at the end. I had one lap that was like 5 seconds off pace, I think, just because of some bad placement of back markers. But I don't know, it all worked out at the end, so it's I'm starting to like this.
I want to ask a real quick question. I'm noticing in your hands you got duct tape on one. You got a little bit of knuckle blood there. Is that how tight you are in this car?
Yeah, it's I normally go without the duct tape, but I was tired of having my knuckles all bloody after every race weekend, so I decided to put tape on. I think the other piece of tape stuck in the glove somewhere. So
a literal bloody knuckle fight in Formula V. Congratulations on another national championship.
Thank you very much.
That's a great way to great way to describe it, coming down to that battle at the end. And as we take a look at the results, you see Verison, Streets, and Scaler get the medals, but Whitson, Ferguson, after the way his week started, to end up with a top 5. That is pretty impressive stuff. Whiteside, Shields recovering from an early spin in turn 10. Siebenaler, Sweeney, and Brandon Abbott rounding out the top 10. In the margin of victory, 99 one-thousandths of a second, Hayward, and Skip Streets in that last little turn, juke to the inside. It was so close.
91 thousandths of a second between you and Verison's at the stripe. One of the closest runoff finishes in the history of the event. I know you wanted to stand on the top step, but how does it feel to be here in second spot?
I'm ecstatic. I've had a great season all the way through. The car's been amazing. The tire's been amazing. Ronnie built a motor. It's been fantastic. And to get to run knuckle to knuckle, wheel to wheel with Michael Verison's was a dream. And we both performed the way we needed to, although I had a little issue.
You had the issue, but you had an amazing recovery for that. Talk to me about that drive, getting back to Verison's.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a long ways. I came around. I kept my foot in it when I spun. I got it back in gear. I didn't lose. I lost one spot. I looked up, and I went, oh, it's a long ways. But there's nothing else to do but try. And I think we had 10 laps to go or something like that. And I almost lost it passing the green car, trying to pass him in 10 with the lap before. I went wide. So I missed a chance to pass him then, but then I got him the next lap, and then it was just Verison's, and he got a little nervous, you could see, and he got in a little bit of the oil, and I didn't on that last lap, and I just closed the gap, missing the oil, and almost.
Almost indeed. Well, congratulations on a silver place finish here.
Thank you very much. Incredible day. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was. And as they were rounding that last turn, you pointed at the monitor and pointed, go inside, go inside. It's exactly what he did, and he darn near pulled it off. It was exceptional. Just didn't quite get it. But I'll tell you what, Hayward, the third place finisher, young Mr. Scaler, this kid's got a future.
Alex, I just got a little coaching. I was told to ask you, how many laps have you done at Sonoma Raceway prior to taking the green flag?
Between the test days, qualifying, it was about 18 laps.
So you did more laps in the race than you've done in your entire life here.
Absolutely.
Quite incredible. Talk to me about the third place finish. You look like you had a chance to reel in the leaders when Skip and Verisons were running together.
Yeah, we had a really good shot, and then we called lap traffic, and unfortunately got inside of a car going through 3 and 3A. And all the gap that I closed in kind of went away, and it allowed Skip to catch up back behind me. And that's all I was able to do. So.
Well, you guys have talked in the booth a lot about the history of Formula V. The future looks pretty bright with this guy behind the wheel. Congratulations.
Thank you. Real quick, I would like to thank, first of all, my dad for everything he does to help me. I would like to thank the guys back home, Carl, Greg, Roger, and Dimitri. Dave Carr from AutoWorks Engines gave us an awesome engine for this event. Jonathan Weishay for towing the car out here and giving me a carburetor to put on the car after we had problems in the last qualifying. Steve Pastor from V Sports Racing, Hoosier Racing Tire, and Jim Carney from Carney Driver Development.
And he did all of that with not nary a glance at the car. This kid does have a future when he moves it up here. Well, I'll tell you, it has been an absolutely fantastic run to the gold for Formula V. It always is. It always comes up with something. And they put on an absolutely spectacular show, Andy. They certainly did today.
They sure did. A super impressive drive all around for our podium contenders. Verisons to hang on there, going back and forth. Streets to catch back up. What a drive there. Scaler to move from 7th on the grid all the way onto the podium. As Hayward said, what a great future for that young gentleman.
Yep, and all of as you talked about, managing the tires. Scaler didn't have a lot of laps. He did a tremendous job. Just absolutely fantastic. It's been spectacular. So for Andy Hollis and for Hayward Wagner and all of our CBS Sports Network crew, I'm Greg Kramer. In association with the CBS Sports Car Club of America, this has been a presentation of CBS Sports Network, your 24-hour home of CBS Sports.